Computer. And we're recording.
Yay.
Hello. So I'm Zoe Shannon. This is Diane Spicer. Say hi, Diane.
Hello.
I'm in Mexico. Where are you, Diane?
I am in Seattle, Washington. Yeah.
So great. Love that state. I'm originally from there, and that's how we know each other. And this is our very first recording for the Wives Club, and we may eventually someday change the name from the Wives Club to something else. But Diane and I decided to come together in this community educational space that we are creating. And this is our very first together YouTube video that we are creating for you so that you can get to know us. So I'm Zoe Shannon, and um, about a year ago, I got divorced. And well, it was finalized probably a couple months ago. And uh let's see, when was it? It was around October, I want to say, of 2024, I believe. Or no, 2023. October 2023 was when my husband said, probably for the fifth or sixth time, I want a divorce. And I was actually in Seattle, Washington around that time. And I went through some stuff and, I had a lot of anger. So I was like, okay, I'll take anger management and I'm going to work on this. And you don't just walk away. Like, I know I need help. And, I wasn't given the best example on how to be a wife. And I realized that in October 2024. And it kind of just dawned on me, oh my gosh, like I actually have no idea how to do this. And that's when I had the idea and I shared it with a couple of friends. Like, I want to create a club for women who are married or who are not married and who want to be married and who have no clue how to be in a relationship, let alone, have a relationship work and thrive. And so I had that idea then when I was still married, and it actually got worse after that, my marriage, and we did get a divorce, obviously. And I still had this idea and I still wanted to do it. And months later, I find myself in a new relationship. However, now actually, it was yesterday, Diane, I texted my partner and I was like, we've been together for 9 months since I became his girlfriend on the 22nd of July,
Oh,
2024.
okay.
So, uh,
Yeah.
I love that. And so I find myself in this new relationship where it was amazing at the beginning. And then I moved in with him and things started to change. And, both of our true colors, I suppose, started to arise. And, I found myself in my old ways. And
Yeah.
I was really doing my best to not to transform those old ways into new ways. And it's me and Dan, we've been talking for at least 5 or 6 months or something like that, but we've really
Yeah.
kind of worked together for the last few months. I know that for sure.
Hmm.
Actually started having weekly calls and doing book club. And now we want to really just create these videos for the purpose of becoming your best girlfriend self, becoming your best wife self, becoming the best partner that you can be. And, me and Diane are here with different perspectives. Well, a lot of the same perspective, but also different perspectives because
Yeah.
I'm monogamous and Diane is polyamorous
Yep.
and married, been for 5 years, which is so awesome. Rock on.
Yeah.
Go you.
It'll be like, yeah.
Yay. I didn't even make it 1 year, so go me.
Yeah.
But and now that I say that, it's like what I'm cheering about when I say go me being married for 1 year is actually that the relationship with my husband through boyfriendship and husband, I've learned and I'm learning so much about myself through that process. And I know that I
Yeah.
can speak for me and Diane when what a lot of what we're going to be talking about and teaching about here is it starts here with you. Like that's where you can make the impact. So in the relationship. So, I could go on and on and on
Yeah.
and that's why we're here. We want to share some things about ourselves. We want to help you in relationships. I kind of think that I'm like in this experimental process, or maybe we all are really like maybe that's
Yeah.
what this life is. And I've been, totally in love with my partner for the last month. Not that I haven't loved him the whole 9 months, 10 months that we've known each other, but because I have, but there's times where just something comes up and it's like it's difficult and you experience internal reactions. Like I experience these internal reactions that are really actually based in the past, but they're coming up right now. And in the moment, it can feel like he's the problem. It's him. He did it. He said it. It's his fault. But that's not what we're teaching here at all. Like we're going to just hold up the mirror, hold up the mirror, hold up the mirror. And what we are teaching is that, like, that gives you so much power. You
Yeah.
power. We're powerful. We're
Yeah.
powerful to make the impact, even if the other person's not doing anything. And my partner, not that he's not doing anything, because my partner is a very great protector and provider. But he's not consciously doing anything that I'm doing. It's not the same. So he's just being him, and I'm doing what I'm doing over here with Diane and being in creation of my relationship. And so there's just going to be so much stuff that we're going to create, and I'm going to finally
Mhm.
let Diane talk, and I'm sure maybe I'll talk again, but um, I'm excited, and we're going to talk about many different things, and we're happy that you're going to join us here at the Wives.
Yeah. The wives club. Yeah. Yeah. So I know it's like, there's so much that you said. I'm like, yes, this is why we're doing it together, which is why we're doing it
Yeah.
together. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'll do a little introduction of myself. So yeah, as you know, I am Diane Spicer. I live in Seattle. I have been married for 5 years. We got married in well, we've been together for 5 years. We've been married since 2021. So 2, 2, 3, 34, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Yeah. So we're coming up on, we got married in July. So, and we started our relationship as poly. I started it as polyamorous. So, and it, I can go into it more, but essentially we date other people and we're married. So that's the short of it. And I do have one partner that I see regularly, and then I have a couple others that I don't see that regularly, but so um and we are married. So I can only be married to one person. So yeah, and I was married previously. So I was married in my 20s. We were married for about 10 years. He had complications from diabetes and he ended up passing away. So we were together for almost like I want to say we were together for almost 10 years. We were married for like, oh gosh, it's been a long time. Like 6 years, I think. And he was sick for a lot of it. So it was a different time. Like I was 25, I think, when we got married. So it's a totally different time. And I'm in my 40s now. So so it was a different time for me. And my marriage now is very, very different from how it was back then. And I learned a lot. The same kind of thing. Like I learned a lot from being married the first time, and then what I wanted, and if I even wanted to get married again. And then it was like, yeah, I was clear I wanted to get married again. And then I went through quite a few different relationships. And then I also realized like I actually want to be polyamorous and not monogamous. And it was just a journey that I went on. And I am for people having the relationship of their dreams, whatever it looks like. So I'm I'm not someone that says one is better than the other. It really literally is whatever works for you works for you. I'm also a love coach out of it. So I tend to coach couples looking at becoming polyamorous. It's because I did that looking. One of the things when I got married this time was I'm polyamorous. I want someone who I am married to also be or to be okay with that, like not just okay, but like to understand it. And then also that we didn't date anyone until after we got married because we wanted that foundation of we are solid with each other, and then all of the other opportunities and the people that we're around is just adding to what we have.
Mm.
So, and it's a huge misnomer around the community and like outside of the community that people are just trying to fix their marriage or somebody's cheating on someone else or that. And they wouldn't be there if it wasn't true. But it's also not the way that, people who do the research and do the looking and really look are will be about dating other people and being polyamorous. So it's essentially it's really similar. It's like looking at yourself, like how do you take responsibility for how you are in relationships? And that's a lot of what I look at for myself. And then that's a lot of what I coach from. I coach from what is your goal? What do you want to accomplish? And then I just stand for you to get there. And then I have tools and tricks and um, coaching and different things to like look at so that you can accomplish that. And
It's
that's
serious
essentially what
again.
we wanted. Yeah. That's essentially what we're doing.
Testimony
Yes.
of the past month in my relationship.
That's right. That's right. So, and I look myself. So there was a time when my husband and I were separated, and I was love coaching at the time. And I am a love coach, but I was coaching different couples at the time, and I had to look at what didn't work in my marriage and if I was going to stand for my marriage or not. And all there was to do was to look, what could I be responsible for? We were separated for about a week and a half. And then he came back and we still weren't technically like back together, but we were living together. And then we, through the discoveries that we both made on our own, and for me being responsible for what I needed to be responsible for, we chose to stay married and to keep working on it. And it was a huge, huge deal. Like it was just like, and without taking a look at what I had to be responsible for as like an opportunity, it would have never happened. So I could have made him wrong. I could have been like, well, he said all this stuff about me. He thinks this, da, 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 da. And I did. I mean, I'm human. And then I took a look. I'm like, well, what didn't work? Because if I want this to work, I have to go look and see what I can be responsible for. And that's, I think, what Zoe and I are all about is just taking a look at what could we look at to be responsible for and what types of things can we kind of experiment with and look at and be like and have fun with to create the relationships that we really want and then look at where, oh, that didn't work, okay, let's try something else. So that's I'm sure you're going to learn a lot more about both of us as we go along, but yeah, I mean that's the main reason why I wanted to do the Wives Club is I just think that there's so much opportunity, and yet nobody teaches you how to be a wife.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of what's in social media and what's in the movies and the picture perfect thing, and like it's I am a the number one thing for me is it only matters to the people that are in the relationship. It doesn't matter to anybody else. Nobody else knows what you're going through except for you and the person or people that you're in relationships with. And that's
Mhm.
true for anything. That's true for a friendship. It's true for anything. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what other people say because they're not in it, and that's a lot of what I had to learn is like, I mean, my best friend is not very happy with how things, are going right now, and she's going to protect me above my husband. And I have to stand for it that, even though somebody's not happy about it, like she's not in it. She's just not in it. I appreciate that my best friend looks after me and is like, look, I'm gonna, and I even told her, I said, I really appreciate that she holds me to account and that she won't let it slip. And she's gonna take a look at, that I'm happy and that my life works. And they can one of my other friends immediately gets protective over me. And I have to remind him like, thank you, and I can handle myself, and they're not in the relationship, they're just not. So this, I think that's, one of the core things for why we're doing the wives club is for us to get like, we're the ones in the relationships, we're the ones that can make the difference, and
Yeah.
we're the ones that can create what we want. So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
And it
that's
reminds me of so much stuff that I just want to talk about, just listening to you share. And yeah, I had a friend too that was, giving me her opinion and kind of, I could tell being a little fearful for me. And
Mhm.
it's very true, it's like they or we can easily blame the partner, the man,
Yeah,
the other person. And our friends might take our side, but I can, you can see that when there's fear from another person. And I'm sure that's another conversation that could be a whole
yeah.
can of worms for another,
Whole topic, yeah.
conversation. But ultimately it's like, well, you don't know who I'm being in this, and
Mhm.
I've shared many times where I've had reactions from my partner, and you can trace it back to something I did or said that caused the chain of events for the thing to happen. I know that's very ambiguous, but that's our work here.
Yeah,
To look
yeah,
at where can I be responsible? And so,
yeah. And
yeah,
it's not that we're saying that your partner shouldn't be responsible.
no,
We're definitely not saying that. Like they
no.
should be responsible. You should have boundaries. You should be clear about what works and what doesn't
Oh,
work.
for sure.
How, however, we can only work on what's going on here. Like whatever's going on with that other person is what's going on with them. And yeah, so because I talk about in my coaching, there's something I call the conditions of satisfaction, which I may or may not go into, but we'll see. Um, like people pay the big bucks for those, but I might go into like a shortened version, but it's the foundation. Like the conditions of satisfaction is like the foundations of every relationship, and how I coach people. It's like, do you need that what do you need to be satisfied, and that's like the bare minimum.
Fair
And it
minimum.
it goes into like boundaries and that kind of thing, because I think a lot of times, especially when people are single and they're dating, they just look for a couple things that work, and then, oh yes, this person's great. However, then things start to creep in, or you get into the same um that you get into the same routine where things start to happen and happen and happen, and then it goes south because there's like five other things that you're not thinking about that this person doesn't satisfy for you.
Mm.
But they hit three of them out of the seven must be good enough, kind of a thing. And I really stand for, no, you should have all seven. There's
Yeah.
billions of people in the world. Why are you settling for three? Like so that's one thing. It's just there's so many different topics, but
Oh, yeah. And we're gonna
you know,
start releasing a video weekly, I believe. Could be
yeah.
bi-weekly, but we're looking at if we can make it work for weekly.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited. We have between the two of us collectively, we have a lot of topics.
Oh, yes. So many. Yeah, we'll do some book reviews here as well.
Yeah,
And so that you don't
we
have
have
to read the
ideas.
book, you can just watch our video.
Yeah, we make it depending on, like there's so much content out there too. I think,
Yeah,
I watch a few YouTubers that just do reaction videos to relationship stuff, and I think that would be a lot of fun for us to do. It lets us, kind of give a little cliff notes to like some of the things that we have and like some of the
Absolutely.
advice and support we have. I also want to touch on the topic of like feminine and masculine because I think
Oh
we're going to
yeah.
talk a lot about that. And I'm more to, I'm LGBTQ type, with being in polyamory, like really being gender fluid, sex fluid, like all of that stuff and being very clear about it. I will I will honor that as much as possible. And we're probably going to mess up at some point. And when we say
Mhm.
feminine and masculine, we are just talking about the gradient of it. We're not necessarily talking about gender or anything. And I think
Yeah.
there's things to be explored, and I
Yep.
think we're going to talk a lot about that, and we'll generally, just so that people know, we'll generally talk about a man and a woman being together.
Mhm.
So that's just, and it's not to exclude anyone.
Yeah.
It's to just, because we're the Wives Club,
Yeah, and
that's
that's
kind
our
of what we
niche.
do.
Like that's,
Yeah.
you're married to a man, I'm with a man, so it only makes sense.
Yeah.
But I love how you said, you're going to be more part of the LGBTQ. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because, I used to identify more as like leaning towards being a feminist woman.
Yes.
And since I've been married, and then separated, divorced, and
Hmm.
now in this new relationship, actually looking at masculine and feminine and looking at the more like traditional wives and traditional husbands,
Hmm.
I really find myself, I'm just gonna smack this mosquito in the first 60, and I'm like scratching my
Oh,
mosquito
yeah.
bite. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've really been leaning towards the traditional views of masculine and feminine roles. But not to say that, because I think in leaning towards that, I'm also taking on that it's a new world too. So it's not
Yeah.
exactly the same as what it was like traditionally in the 50s or the 40s, but
Hmm.
it's similar in terms of the man's the provider and the woman and that's just my view, and that's
Yeah. It's a
I
place
love
to
being
look.
taken care of and spoiled, and my man likes to provide. It's
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just in him to be that way. It's
Yeah.
his role. And even if I make a lot of money, which I make money, I mean, I don't right now. I'm
Hmm.
looking for a job, but I came into the relationship with money and have been paying my bills, but he pays for everything and he wants to do that. Like that's
Yeah.
no matter how much I make, he still wants that role. Like
Yeah.
that's it, it's instinct. And I think it's an
Yeah.
instinct for a lot of men. And I think,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, we're just going to go into so many different topics because I'm also thinking about like, I think women, it's kind of in us instinctually as well to be taken care of. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes that can cause anger and frustration and resentment towards a man when
Yeah.
when those roles aren't even and fair, or and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother topic, but
It's a
that's just an
whole nother topic.
idea.
Yeah. And
Like
I
what
know,
we're
and
gonna
going
dive
off
into.
I know, and going off that too, another topic is kind of how we communicate with each other inside of those types of things that,
Yeah.
if he's the provider and we're like the nurturer, like for different, there's other things obviously, but like those two, like then we're going to communicate differently. And it's just kind of taking a look. It's taking a look like what fits, what doesn't fit. If something doesn't fit for you, it doesn't fit for you. That's totally fine. We're just providing different options. So we're
Yeah.
not saying we have to do this in order to succeed. It really is like, here's some of our tools. Here's all the things that we've found because we've failed in relationships and we've succeeded in relationships and everything in between. And we really just want to provide the tools and everything. And then we're still discovering. So I mean, the
Mhm.
books that we've been reading lately, and it's just like, oh yeah, I should. And there's things to take on, and so I take on different things, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, he really responded to that. Oh no, I totally did not do well with that. So
Yeah. And there's things
yeah.
that you and me like, we agree to not agree on certain things. I mean, that I'm
Hmm.
not mono I'm I'm not monogamous. I am monogamous. I'm not
Yes.
polyamorous and you're not monogamous. So there's that, but
Yeah.
it's like we're coming into this space agreeing that there are things that we don't
Hmm.
necessarily agree upon, but that doesn't matter because the one purpose here is that we all get to thrive and be in love
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
relationship and that it works and that it can withstand long-term togetherness.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Totally.
that's
Yeah.
and I want to say, and maybe you want to share a little bit about your background too,
Hmm.
because I've always known my whole life, like, I didn't have a good example, and my mother
Hmm.
knows that I love her, and we participate in courses together, and we
Yes.
used to be distant, and we have not been for the past 6 years. So,
Hmm.
but she knows I love her, but she was married 7 times, and you know,
Yeah.
has 4 kids, 4 different fathers. And maybe it seems like a judgment, but maybe it is a little, but it's like that was my example. And so, and it's
Hmm.
not her fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just that was my example. And I'm sure there's other people that are like that, that have examples. And we learn from our parents. We're kind of just
Yeah.
we're
That's all we see.
individuals, but we're just,
Yeah.
clones of our parents. And especially when it comes to behavior and relationships, because our parents are our first partners, technically, they're our first
Yeah.
relationship with a man and a woman. So, yeah,
Yeah.
like that's just
Yeah.
my example of my already automatic, like what I lean towards are the ways in which I saw my mother behave with men. And
Yeah.
although I'm a little bit different, there's so many similarities
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
reaction to really not trying to be like my mom. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I don't it's fun to learn things, and grow. So I'm not complaining, but it's definitely, I think that even when people do have good examples of relationships, maybe it's still not always easy, but I actually don't know
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you about my background. So as far as my parents, so my parents were married my entire life. They got married before, and let's see. I mean, what's relevant? I mean, 'cause, I can talk about both my parents are deceased, so I don't have them here anymore. So I really only have to go with the past. Like I really literally only have to go with what I know and what I remember. My parents did pass when I was an adult, so thankfully I did have them. I was in my 30s when my mom passed and when my dad passed. So
Mm.
yeah, so it was separately, but yeah, and they were married the whole time. I grew up in a family where we never said I love you.
Mm.
So that's more what it was. Like I knew my parents loved each other, but they were very separate. Like there wasn't a lot of outward intimacy. And there was um my dad was in the military. My mom came from Taiwan and he married her. She came over and learned English and they got married. And so she essentially got married and came over to the US and he was in the military. And so it was really great, and then they had me and my sister and we traveled all around because my dad was in the military. And it was really interesting to grow up in a family with someone who was an immigrant and that kind of stuff. So, and it's just, so to have someone who was Asian descent and then my dad was from Denver. So he was total American, and to have that kind of blended marriage too of like different cultural backgrounds was really, really interesting. And neither one of the cultures, my dad didn't grow up in a very outwardly loving family. And my mom is, with the Asian background and everything, wasn't very outwardly like emotional or anything like that. So I've struggled in my relationships to compliment my partner. And, I say I love you all the time because that was one of the ones that like I was clear that I didn't want to continue that. Like I wanted to be someone to say that I love people all the time. and so that, and just, yeah, and they were married, but there was fighting, there was a lot of, it was a lot of like pretend like everything's fine,
Mm.
and there was a lot of like, for lack of a better term, like passive aggressiveness that my husband and I really work hard to not do, because both of us grew up in families that were passive aggressive, and we're like, that doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
So we're almost brutally honest at times. So, because the pendulum can swing a little too far the other way when you're so used to the passive aggressiveness.
I
And
think
then,
that's great. Then there's not a chance for it to build up and bottle up, you know?
yeah. And it still happens, right? Because, like you said, we only knew what we grew up with. So
Mm.
then all of those patterns are still there. And we'll catch each other being passive aggressive or saying snide comments when we say that we won't do it, because it's just what we grew up with. And we're
Yep.
just so used to it that it just comes out of our mouth without even realizing it. And we've had to catch each other quite a bit. And it's just a learning process, right? And then come to find out, my dad, after he passed, although this is the whole thing, my parents didn't talk about anything. We found out that he had been married before and that he was divorced, and never talked to us about it. Never talked to us about
Oh.
it. Never. We have half siblings out there in the world that we don't know about. Me and my sister have pieced together what probably happened. It was his high school sweetheart. They had kids together. Something happened. She said that some disparaging things about him, and chose to divorce him. And he was Catholic. And so back in the day, if you were divorced, you were excommunicated from the church.
Mm.
So they don't do that anymore, but they did for a long time. I mean, it ages me, it ages my parents, but like in the 70s, like they still excommunicated people. So he could no longer worship in the Catholic Church. And so it was shame, like he was, ashamed of that. And so he never talked about it. So it's fascinating to me as far as relationship goes, that even though I didn't know it, I'm sure that colors how I deal with relationships. Like, I am afraid of people leaving me, like that's one of the things that I have, is like, don't leave me as something, or like, I'm leaving you as a communication I have a really hard time dealing with. And
Mm.
I'll react and get controlling. Sally and I have talked about control. We will
Oh
talk about
yeah,
that
it
more,
was
I'm sure.
something I wanted to bring up because I know that I think it's one of the ways women, it's very common that that's what
Very.
we do. And I think it's what drives the space in between a woman and her man. And
Yeah.
she
Is
doesn't
the
know she's
control.
doing it as much as she's doing it. And
Yeah.
he doesn't always have the words or the knowing that that's what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
It was the main reason why my husband and I
Mhm.
separated, is
And
because
that's
he said
why
I
I
was
got
controlling.
divorced. Hmm.
Yeah. So we
Controlling,
will
yelling. Yep.
definitely talk about that. And
We're definitely
and
going
there's
to talk
just,
about that.
yeah, and so like, I'm sure that, that the divorce for my dad and my parents' marriage and how it went, colors how I deal with my marriage, because that's all I ever saw. Like you said, there's just there's no school for being married, and you go with what you know and what you've seen. And, hopefully you have good examples of, families that you were around, your own family or friends that are been married. I know quite a few. There was my late husband's parents have been married since they were 19. And it's pretty incredible. Like, they're awesome, like that they've been married, through it all. And so my late husband thought that he was late in getting married because we got married in our 20s. Like, I was 25. And he was like, oh, we should have already been married, because his parents got married when they were 19. So for
Wow.
him, he got a late start, which is crazy to me, because I
Uh-huh.
would never suggest getting married at 25. Like, that's just like,
First marriage was 35, 36.
Yeah.
35. I guess I was 35. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, and that's one thing that will definitely come out. My husband and I are 15 years apart. He is
Mhm.
15 years younger than me. So I have a podcast, a YouTube group that I watch that they they have a thing where if there's a large gap and they date before they're 25, they consider it quote unquote illegal because even though it's legal, their frontal lobe is still being developed until you're about 25. And so anybody under 25 is like off limits. It's really funny. My husband was
Wow.
25. He
Yeah.
just was 25 when he was like 26 when we started dating. So I fall outside, like it's fine, but there is a 15-year difference. And so that also I think comes into play. Like I have to remember there are experiences he's never had that I've had.
Hmm.
And there's a grace and like patience that I have to have, and like he's gonna have to experience that on his own, like in his own time, even though I've already experienced it. So I'm sure that will come up quite a bit, and or at least
Yeah.
a
And
little bit.
speaking of age, like my relationship right now is my very first relationship with an older man.
Mm,
My whole life, I've been with men that were either like right around my age or younger. Usually,
yeah,
it's always younger by
it's
2 or 3
yeah.
years or a year or something.
Mine, mine. I'm gonna out myself. Mine have been progressively more. The guy that I dated before was 10 years younger than me.
Hmm.
So and I used to, and my husband and I were like 9 months apart. He was like 9 months younger than me, so we were about the same age.
Mm.
So like progressively, I did date other people. They're mostly the same age. My partners are the same age. They're one's like 2 years older than me, and the other one I think is like a year younger. So, and then the other one, which one I don't see very often, he's I think a couple years younger. So I tend to date a little younger. 15 was like the limit, but it didn't.
Yeah, and
And
I would love to talk about that because I don't know. I kind of think it's related to that I wanted to be in control.
yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah. There's,
not even kidding. Like,
yeah, yeah,
I think it's related to that.
yeah.
Oh, so I
Oh, yeah.
have tons of stories about transitioning from younger, controlling the
Hmm.
man to now, like, he's in control.
Yeah.
Now, not completely, that's not a true statement because he's not,
Right.
and he doesn't, but he's the leader of
Hmm.
the family.
Yeah.
He's the leader of the
Yeah.
family. And that has taken something
Hmm.
for me
Hmm.
internally and externally and all of my soul to mosquito to
Yeah.
learn to let go of control.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
great. It's really
Yeah.
great.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's,
any
it's
last words,
interesting.
sorry, that you want to say, Diane? I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's
No, no
let's
problem.
wrap up so our friends can come back next week.
I know. As you can tell, we have a lot of
I
different
know. We're
topics.
gonna have so many amazing conversations.
Yeah, I think that'll be really great. Yeah, I mean, just stay tuned, kind of a thing. We're, building this as we go, and we're of course happy to hear about any suggestions or what you
Yeah.
thought, or we are definitely building this thing as we go. And so you'll probably see, different backgrounds, different topics, different
Yeah, absolutely.
formats, different all the different things. Like you'll see us transform and like start to hone our craft, I think, and like what we're out to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah,
So
and let us know if you have
yeah.
any suggestions, like Diane said. Exactly.
Yeah.
Any topics that you want us to talk about, any questions that you want us to riff on or anything, because we would love to.
Yeah.
We definitely want this to be an interactive experience. So,
Yeah. For now, we've got lots of topics. So we'll be talking about
yeah.
what we want to talk about until we hear about
Yeah.
other things. But yeah, yeah, I think that's it. And then, yeah, I mean, we've got so many different ideas and so many different ways that we can go. So we're really excited. I'm really excited to go on this journey and to have people discover us and discover what's available. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Until next time on the Wives Club. Bye.
Bye.